Collaboration is something that we kind of do from time to time, and it's a good thing. It's a sign of growth. It's a sign that you're doing something different. You're trying something new, and you're moving forward. So, what's wrong with that? I'm Mark Elliott. I've been the host of When Black Men Talk for quite some time now, and we're moving into another direction. The show has been growing itself, and this is another leg that's going to be starting underneath the show as well. We're moving in a different direction into a topic. Let me take that word topic back. The name of the show is No Topic Left Behind. Now, I say a collaboration. I must be working with someone. And the person I'm working with is remarkable Renee Ambush. And this is her baby. She brought it to the forefront. We discussed it. We decided to venture into this. So, remarkable Renee, welcome aboard. And it's our
Thank
initial
you.
one. Please
Yes,
enlighten us
yes.
about No Topic Left Behind. What's in store?
You're absolutely right. It's my baby. I have been the person since elementary school that was the talk too much on the report card, right? And back then, it was like, oh my goodness, I'm getting in trouble because I talk too much. But it wasn't that I didn't have something to say, it was that people weren't ready to hear what I wanted to say. So as I got older and embraced the fact that, I do like to talk, but I do like impactful conversations, that I needed to start talking about the topics that we leave behind, the things that people are afraid to touch, the things that people are not fully aware of, educated on, or even have enough understanding, which is still, kind of being educated on, to give some positive, impactful feedback for. And so, thus developed No Topic Left Behind.
Okay. Very interesting. I mean, you talking is seem like it's a natural thing for you. That's which is a beautiful thing. It's a
Mhm.
natural thing. But not that you're just talking. You say a lot when you do talk. Now, this No Left Behind is something you and I are gonna be doing together. Now, as I stated earlier, it's gonna fit under when black men talk from time to time, but you have your own network. Please share with us about
I
that.
do. I do. I have the Destiny Over Drama, DOD Radio Network. And you can find that if you type that in on in your Google browser. And DOD, Destiny Over Drama Radio, is something that it was birthed out of the fact that my son, who passed away when he was 28, was a performer by the name of Drama. When he passed away, I realized that there was still destiny. I still had purpose, even beyond him being here. Though I gave birth to him, he gave life to me in his death. So I wrote a song called Destiny that was actually considered for a Grammy. And so I realized that though he's gone, the name literally drama, that there was still destiny. So I realized so many people have stories. They have overcoming triumphs. They have challenges that they're thriving over. And I needed people to start hearing more about how powerful that it is to have destiny over drama. And I'm so glad, Mark, let me just say this, that you said yes to No Topic Left Behind, because it takes an intelligent, intellectually, emotionally mature, and developed individual to delve into topics that people don't want to deal with. And that you said yes to being the person that we can spring off back and forth with your platform and my platform to make an impactful difference in this thing we call life.
Well, thank you much. I'm happy to do so. Really, real happy to do so. Now, interesting enough, we have basically decided on some few topics to start out with. And ironically, this is one of the things that kind of got this going too. You sent me a video,
Mhm.
and it was interesting. After the video, you and I had a little chatter going about it, and we decided to make this one the first topic that we're going to go behind. Do me a favor and do us a favor. Share the knowledge of the video that you sent and the backdrop for the most part.
Yeah, that video pretty much was a gentleman that was actually, I think, started like a joke per se. He called his male friends and he made statements like, hey, just calling to say good night. And their friends are like, what? man, are you okay? What? Why are you calling me? Saying he's like, no, just I'm getting ready to take it down for the night, and just wanted to check on you and see you. And they're kind of like getting like, what in the world are you doing, guy? Like, why are you checking on me like this? Like, what are you doing? Like, this ain't a man thing. Why are you checking on me? And I thought that was interesting because it really has two twists to that. Like, why can't a man check on a man and make sure he's okay? But then why would a man need to be checked on in such a manner? And so I think that was like interesting to be our first topic that's not left behind.
It was interesting because there was another video that kind of correspond with that. It was a gentleman that got he was divorced.
Hmm.
You remember that when he was divorced, and when he got divorced, he said that everyone checked on
Oh
her,
yeah. Yeah,
and,
yeah, that one. Oh yeah, yeah.
and no one really checked on him. And he said he was hurting, and even his friends really didn't pay him much attention. And until he found someone else, and for the most part, throughout that time, no one really paid much attention to him. So it's interesting. It kind of from those two videos, we land here with basically men looking to be checked on, and it's interesting because I think there's a yay and nay to that to an extent.
Hmm.
Because for the most part, most men we're not looking to be checked on. I'm gonna go to the gentleman basically that got divorced for the most part.
Right, right, right,
I
right.
don't think
Okay.
a lot of times we're looking to be checked on for the most part. Let's say we experience a breakup or something of that nature. And I'm not saying that we should not check to make sure our brother is good. But for the most time, as men, we tend to work through our problems, our thoughts on our own. And we're not necessarily basically seeking someone to basically hover around and kind of basically look in. Like you said, the guy called and checked that night. That's a little bit, for me, that would be a little bit too much. And, and maybe because we're not used to it, but
Right.
I think it has its place to an extent. But I'll go back to the gentleman that went through the divorce and was kind of seeking where she was getting all this attention and no one's really checking on me. In a
Hmm.
way, I look at that. I'll start there. I look at that because in reality, the men tend to be more logical, women tend to be more emotional. So we tend to expect, most men, we tend to expect that when something like that happens, she's going to get more support. They're going to
Right.
feel for her more based on her emotions. I go back to the day that I got divorced for the most part. And I'm walking in the courtroom. I didn't ask anybody to come with me. I didn't think I needed anyone to be there for me, basically, hold my hand, support
Hmm.
anything of that nature. Of course, she brought someone. To what degree or how it helped her, I don't know.
Hmm.
But that to me was the whole thing. I mean, I walked out of the courtroom happy that what took place. I didn't need, anybody basically wiping my eyes. So I understand in a sense where a woman would need something like that. But when I see a brother speaking and saying, she got all the attention, no one looked at me, I start to wonder about him a little bit emotionally. Get your reaction to it.
Well, it's so funny because this is what I kind of want to throw out there and ask this question though, Mark. Why do we have to disconnect emotion and logic, right? Because they really operate uh jointly and together, right? They are an and but. So logic does not take away our feeling. It gives us the opportunity to process something clearly, but it doesn't take away the emotion. And I think far too many times we actually separate the two and think that there are agree. Like you don't want to be overly emotional, especially because men are tend not to be looked at as overly emotional. But to that logic that I don't need anybody here, that's fine. But would I feel supportive if somebody was there? Yes. But I like what you're saying. Let's look at when that emotion becomes problematic with a male that they actually seek all of that attention or cuddling to the emotions.
Good point. I will say this about emotions and logic, and I think for most men, excuse me, we don't run away from emotions. When we kind of
Mhm,
say men are
mhm.
more logical, the quick thought is that men run away and don't experience their emotions. And most men are not afraid to cry. We deal with it, we
Yeah,
open up, but we realize that we can't live in our emotions. That
absolutely. Mark, I
we
say this all the time. I apologize. I say We all were born, emotions are not gender based. It's just that we are not to pitch a tent and live in them. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and that's the where the logic basically takes over because we feel what we feel. I mean, even go to divorce. I'm not saying any man basically that chose to become a husband looks for that they'll become, becoming divorced and those things. But when you realize that's the reality,
Mhm.
you can cry for a while, but at some point you got to step up into reality and basically deal with
Absolutely.
it. And that's where the logic basically takes over. But going back to what you said about, the validation can be problematic. I believe it really can be for men. I think it
Hmm.
can be. I think it
Hmm.
can be problematic for women as well because I think it lends itself to something deeper than basically attention. It
Hmm.
lends itself to me to where you don't feel your self worth is enough. You don't feel
Yeah.
good about yourself. You have some things that basically you're dealing with underneath the surface that you may not be paying attention to where even if the attention starts to come, it still may not be enough because you're not really dealing with the issue at hand.
Hmm.
So for a man, sometimes, and I look at some men now in general, and I notice that a lot of men, for the most part, that seek out that constant validation, want to be noticed. A lot of times, to me, they may have been brought up in a sense where they haven't gotten attention when they was a child.
You
Attention
know,
could have been avoided of them. Please continue.
yeah, yeah, I think that. So I know that I have, young children, and young adults. And I was interacting with a guy in a relationship, and I remember hearing my daughter say, "Oh my gosh, mom, he's a simp." And I'm like, "What is that? Like, is he simple?" I'm older, so I'm like, what do you mean he's a simp?" And she was like, "He has too many emotions and feelings. Like, he's always talking about like how he feels and what he feels." And I'm like, it really made me look, Mark, because I'm thinking, wow, what are we telling the generation about being able to be emotionally mature, right? Or emotionally intelligent, being aware of their feelings. And so it made me kind of, like you said, look at what you were saying. Like, let me now adjust and look at and listen to this guy and hear, is he speaking to me because he is aware of his emotions and not afraid to express them? Or is he seeking validation from me because of all of these emotions? You know what I mean? And that made me look to what you're saying, like finding that balance to understand where that person is coming from, which means you probably have to get more history, a little more backstory. And I realized that just in that example, that he was teeter-tottering on a little 51% he was emotionally aware, and 49% I did not get the nurture that I needed in my formative years. So yes, I do seek some validation in my emotions that can, I'm going to add this, Mark, that can then lead or add men to become manipulative in their relationships with women because they're seeking what they didn't get, but being manipulative to receive it.
Well, absolutely. Men that, you give us a way to get in. We're coming in. And I like that point because the manipulation part starts where a lot of men basically were relying on their childhood, good or bad, and the bad
Mhm.
parts about it. And we'll basically sell that to women.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and for the most part, a lot of women lynch onto that
Yep.
and feel sorry. And what happens then, they'll start to overlook some other characteristic flaws in this person and
Wait a minute.
spend,
Oh, wait a minute, Mark. Stop. I gotta change my shoes because you done stepped on a toe or two. Go ahead.
okay, they'll start to overlook, and it's the mothering inside of them, but they'll start to overlook some characteristic flaws that this man presents. And for some reason, they want to heal his past.
Mm-hmm.
They want to
Mm-hmm.
step in and mother and heal, and you can't. You
Absolutely.
really can't. And you spend time basically thinking that you can. You can foster him to feel better about himself, and really, that's left up between him and his God.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. Men will use that as a manipulative form, and it happens a lot. It
Mm-hmm.
happens a lot, and a lot of times people sometimes end up together based on that alone. And then at some point, she may start to realize she's been kind of, juked, been bamboozled to an extent, and then may just start to see that she really is not interested in him at all.
Absolutely. And you know what? And to that point, and again, it's really not gender specific, but in our therapeutic stance, that has a title. It's taking on a trauma role. And we hear things like trauma bonds and relationships and things of that nature, but there are also trauma roles. And sometimes those connect individuals as well. So that man who's seeking the validation and seeking that from a woman, and either manipulative or not, she chose to take on being in a relationship with him and helping him in his nurturing. Most times, not all, but most times it's from a female who has taken on a characteristic from her trauma to say, oh, now if I mother this man, or if I nurture my nature neighborhood, or if I become a volunteer here, I'm helping all these people, because you're really not facing or dealing what it is within you. You're just taking on a role from your trauma.
Hmm. Okay. It's Mark Elliott and remarkable Renee Ambush. We've gotten together and started No Topic Left Behind. So basically, this topic that we're kind of really going behind is men looking to be checked on. And
Hmm.
again, for the most part, I understand that we should be checking on other men and check on their mental health. I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm not discounting that at all. But I think we're touching on some important factors here. And another fact I really want to bring out, because this is really one part of a man's life that I don't think we pay enough attention to. When you have a fatherless son, for the
Oof.
most part, that grows up without a father, and he misses the things that God basically intended for him to receive from his dad, and he's left. I use the word left, you could say lightly or correctly. He's left there to be with his mother.
Mm,
And there's just certain things that the mom cannot foster to that child that the father was supposed to give to that young boy. And he grows up. I think this plays a huge part of men seeking validation,
mhm.
because for the most part, they still have that void in their life. And even on the flip side, they're basically being raised by a woman, no fault of her own, to where she's emotional.
Thank you for
And
saying that.
you start to basically attach yourself onto what you see. And if you're not, as a male, really in tune with the difference, and you come of age and you don't start to separate, you basically will live your life with that estrogen that you were basically used to, that you were nurtured with. And now you're walking around and you're over emotional. You're always seeking a validation. You take things, you kind of you can take a small thing and make it out to be a huge thing. And I
Yeah.
think that plays a vital part in a lot of men that walk in the face of this earth today.
I do too. And I'm going to add to that, but I'm also going to just go back a little bit and say this. Sometimes, like you said, with that, and I'm very transparent. You know that I speak about myself. And I can say that being a singularity parent, which is different from a single parent, being a singularity parent and raising male children, melanated male children, I tend, I had a tendency not to lean to my emotions and to give them this more logical sense, because even though I knew I couldn't teach them to be a man, within me, I had not made peace with the fact that I still wanted to teach them to be manly. And in doing so, being emotionally, not being emotional, I almost taught or gave my sons a way to not tap into their emotions or the emotions of other women, because mommy wasn't emotional. But when I was emotional, it was kind of difficult for them to see me that way, because that was never how I presented myself, right? And so sometimes this single female raising this son, or raising this male, like you said, and having to navigate her own emotions, and then try not to have them to be so emotional, can sometimes put them in a space where they really don't know how to deal with emotions at all.
I'm curious to understand. I like what you said. You realize you had to kind of fill in the blanks some to an extent. Where did that idea come from? I mean, if the father wasn't there and you're raising a son, where did that come from? Because I don't think on average it's thought about. I don't think when the father's not there, No
Hmm.
one, and I would assume back in the day, I'm just as my assumption because I didn't live way back then.
Hmm.
But usually, when a male was not present for a young male, the males in the community kind of filled in some.
Yeah, back in the day. You're right.
Yeah,
Back.
yeah. The uncles, we saw that child. We kind of basically decided to basically pick up on what we could and kind of fill in because we knew subconsciously things that young male was going to need that was going to be voided in his life because his dad wasn't there for whatever reason. So, as a mother, how did you get to that point to say, I'm going to do what I can and understand the difference? Because I don't think a lot of moms, it's just not to, put them down.
Hmm.
I don't think a lot of mothers in that situation look at it that way. I think
Right.
because they're dealing with a lot. And a lot of times they might be dealing with hurt and pain from the father not
Ah,
being there.
mm,
And
absolutely.
with all that going on, how does she and how did you get to that point where you understood you must approach this a little differently?
Well, first, and this was even uh, PC prior Christ in my life, but I just took inventory of my environment. And we talked a little bit about it before, and knowing that I'm from inner city Baltimore, I looked at who was around me. I had close friends who were unlicensed pharmaceuticals in the street, and I just looked and was like, that's not where I wanted my son to be, right? Not judging those who were doing whatever they were doing for whatever reason they were doing it. I just didn't want my son to have that. So I just was like, I gave birth to this child, and no matter what my opportunities were, I have to give him different opportunities. And so, like you said, struggling and navigating through my own emotional lack and abuse and traumas and things of that nature, the person has to, first and foremost, if they have not found a relationship in understanding their walk or teaching from Christ's teaching, then you have to find a part of inner strength to say, I've got to do better. I want to do better. And no matter if that better looks like just a little teeny weeny step at a time, you keep on going for better. And that was my thought process, that I can't teach him how to be a man. And that hurt me as a woman. That used to hurt me because I'm like, I want to give my child everything. But understanding my limitations, I can give him only really what I can give him. And as a singularity mom with melanated males in the inner city, what I thought about was, what skills and characters can I give them that'll help navigate them or their road a little easier? And so I chose to teach respect, morals, character. I chose to affirm the person and not the gender. And so those were what I chose to do. And like you said, I looked for different organizations, Big Brother program, Boys and Girls, anything that I could find, talking to their barber, whatever, just to bring that male role. But society changed that for us, and it was more difficult to find. Would you say that as we changed in our society narratives and perspectives, that it took away those things that were foundational that really helped us?
Well, sometimes I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm not going to say society didn't.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
I think as black men, we changed. We dropped the ball.
Yeah.
We did realistically. We dropped the ball basically, first of all, leaving our sons and daughters alone to be raised without us. We
Mhm,
did. And then noticing situations where we could have basically stepped in and made a difference and we chose not to. Yeah, we
mhm,
dropped the ball. And we haven't presented, as black men, we haven't presented a well picture for our young black males.
mhm,
We
mhm,
haven't. I mean, in general, I'm never shy to say it. It's the truth in my perspective, because we have presented a world to a lot of our black males as be about yourself, go get yours, earn yours, and whatever it takes to do, whoever you hurt, whatever it is, sell what you got to sell. That's not what we should be showing our black males.
mhm,
There's no form of fashion we've been showing our black males. We show them that they should not be in tune with their emotions. They should not understand basically, yeah, it's okay to cry if you feel something. I mean, there's no reason why, you know, any of our kids are raised without a dad. If he's not 6 feet under, where the hell is he?
Mm-hmm.
There's
Mm-hmm.
no excuse. That's a responsibility that we have as Black men that we have been distorted on for a long period of time. And that's the God given truth.
Let me ask you
So
this, Mark. Let me
please
ask you
do.
this. Stop, pause. Let me ask you this because you said something, and I just kind of want to throw this out here because I really want to know how do you feel about this. So, me being a singularity parent, again, right, and fathers knowing that they have a responsibility, like you said, and not stepping up to the plate. I was one of those sisters that I was just like, listen, I'm not going to ask for child support because they know that they have this responsibility, and people were like, "You crazy?" And even my husbands, who were not the fathers of my children, was just like, what do you mean you're not going to take them to child support or you don't care if they pay child support? And my thing was because I don't feel like I have to force a person to know their responsibility, and only putting somebody else in my business in order to make somebody do something, I don't feel like it should be a headache for me to do. What do you feel about that? Because I'm like that was crazy that, like you said, if you're leaving that responsibility and you drop the ball, but me as a woman going, okay, look, I'm not even going to fight you or run behind you to pick up the ball, right? What do you say to that? Because I'm like, was that something crazy, or should I have forced them to go and pay child support and give me a whole lot, or whatever the case may be?
Child support financially helps a child. It doesn't raise a child.
Right, right, right. Oh,
It
say
doesn't.
that again.
It just
Yes.
doesn't. It doesn't raise a child. Basically, you're forcing the system, you're forcing the state, you're forcing the government to make sure the child has half financially what it needs to basically survive and have somewhat of a life.
Mm-hmm.
Child support does not raise a child mentally,
At
emotionally.
all.
It
At
does
all.
not give the child what it
Physically.
needs to
Mm-hmm.
progress
Mm-hmm.
in life. So you choosing not to do that, I understand that. I mean, realistically, that's a choice. I understand. And a lot of times, beyond the financial support, a lot of people use child support for revenge,
Yeah.
spite, vindication. I mean, they run there for that. And, I'll say this, you sloped at him. You gave him a child.
Mm-hmm.
You can't run
Mm-hmm.
around and take everybody's sperm and have a baby. It is what it
Mm-hmm.
is.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we have to look at that too. So no, I don't see anything wrong if you chose not to do such. If you felt
Mm-hmm.
inside of it that's not what you wanted to do, and you was able to raise your children in spite of that, God bless you. I mean,
Mm.
everyone do it for their particular reason, but no, I'm not going to say that's necessarily the case. And I see what child support is. I understand what it is, but no one should have to force someone to do what's right for their children.
Absolutely.
It should not be a
Absolutely.
system that has to force you to do what's right for your child. It's simple as
Mm-hmm.
that. We a lot of
Absolutely.
time we get mad at the system. We get mad at people, that choose not to, if the case may be. But if that's your responsibility, bro. Someone shouldn't put a gun to your head or basically have you do what's necessarily right for your child. And again,
Absolutely.
financial support is not basically raising a child.
And
I
I'm so glad you said that because it's so the truth. And like you said, for the listeners, for the men, this is an encouragement to you as well. Just kind of like a little light bulb and a maybe a little revelation to bring you back to a spot to be like, you know what? Maybe this very talk about this no topic left behind will cause you to go, you know what? I need to show up. And my sister, allow him to show up. Allow him to show up because it is very important, not for you, my girl, but for your child. So, Mark, thank you for saying that. And I think you had asked me a question. We went back to something about the fathers outside the home. Can you kind of reiterate that again so that I can specifically speak to that as well?
The father's out the home. Well, realistically, I'm trying to think what I said. I said so much, so
Right, 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 right.
I
That's
may
that.
not be able to,
Yes.
I may not be able to rewind it back mentally that quickly. But I mean, I just think in general, I've always noticed this. I came up basically, of course, my dad being there,
Oh wow,
and I assumed coming up that way that we all had that luxury. I did. It wasn't.
wow,
I just. It was just. I was naive to think that until I got a little older as a teenager and started to see where some of my friends, whatever, their dads weren't there. Most of my friends had their fathers there. So if you're coming up and you're playing with, your boys and, you're seeing their fathers and they had a healthy respect and fear and love for their dad, you assume that's the norm of life. So when you come
wow.
across, and realize that a lot of people weren't blessed with that, didn't have it, you start to really think and you think deep about it. First, I was
Hmm.
grateful that I had what I had and was given to me, but I start to try to understand why didn't they have it?
Hmm.
Why
Hmm.
wasn't available to them? Why didn't they have it? And I came across, of course, you come across a litany of reasons and excuses, and none of them were good. And thing I will say this too, man, you can't raise a child being in jail. You cannot
Ooh,
raise a son
harsh.
being in jail. And
No.
I mean, realistically, I became a father at 17.
Wow.
16, 17 years old, I became a father. Now, there's no way at 16 or 17 in my head, I'm thinking, if I do something dumb enough to get behind bars, how am I going to raise my daughter?
Right.
She's left without me. There's no way possible. There ain't enough
Yeah.
freaking phone calls, letters, whatever that's going to raise her if I'm behind some steel bars. So
Mm-hmm.
that mentality stuck in my head. Realistic, I'm not doing nothing stupid to put myself in a situation where I can't be around her.
Mm-hmm.
My
Mm-hmm.
job is to be there for her to help raise her. And I knew that at 16, 17 years old. So I don't make any excuses for anyone else. And a lot of times I don't listen to excuses because a
I
lot of
know
times
that's right.
that's what we have to offer. And we look at our community and look at the damage been done realistically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A
Mm-hmm.
lot of it I put at the feet of fathers. I really do, because if we were what we were supposed to be to our children, our community would be much stronger and better than it is at this present moment. And we
Right. I
don't
want
like
to
to
give you
say it.
kudos.
We make excuses for everything. We bring this in. We want to blame the man. We want to do everything else. But if we were to be on our grind and where we were to have been for our children, our sons and daughters, you
Mm-hmm.
can't tell me our community looked the way it looks.
I
You
know
just
that's
can't tell
right.
me. Yeah.
I know that's right. And I want to give you kudos because, holding fire to the feet and holding accountable the man makes more of a difference and makes more of an impact than me as a female kind of coming in and trying to hold them accountable because it can be misconstrued. So I thank you for just talking to your brother and saying something like that. And, because I'm making sure that I'm going to do my part to keep these sisters, whether they like it or not, know it that I love you, sister, but I'm going to keep you accountable because you have to play your part and your role in that too. Because we have to really look at the fact that sometimes men are absent from the home because of the females, and therefore, again, leaves fatherless children who don't have their father and now unable to navigate those masculine things because they don't have that connection with their father because they're there. And even if they have connections with other males, sometimes it ain't nothing like getting it from your own home though. The uncles can come, like you said, the brothers, the neighborhood, but whatever. But to get it from your own dad it really makes a difference genetically, biologically, identifiably, because you have something to connect with, which kind of takes me to this. Having fathers that are in the home, you were blessed. But how about the fathers that are in the home that are not in a particular place to model what is needed for their sons to have that emotional stability that they're not able to be, they're not in a position that they need to be checked on, or they're overly emotional and things of that nature? That's an impact as well.
Yeah, it is. And I hear that it is. And you have a lot of fathers, you're correct, that could have been there that didn't know how to. Um, I look at it as a two-sided coin.
Hmm. Hmm.
And one side of the coin is learn how to.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
There's no excuse.
yeah, there's no excuse. You learn how to. Realistically, you just basically you do what you got to do. It's like if you don't know how to, if you need to eat, you don't know how to basically cook. You learn to cook. You're not going
Hmm.
to starve. You're not going to basically die
Absolutely.
from hunger. You do what you have to do. So if you have a child, you have to, and you're not really. If it wasn't given to you, it wasn't basically around you. That doesn't mean you can't be better as a dad. But I
Hmm.
do understand in saying that. I understand the flip side of the coin that for some it is tough in a sense. But I've seen young men, you know, I've seen young men that basically have been raised without their dad, and
Hmm.
they're young dads now, and they're awesome fathers,
Absolutely.
awesome. And
Absolutely.
so how are they given to their children that wasn't given to them? They made a decision, they made a choice.
Yes.
They really
Yes.
did. They did the work that's necessary. They basically, as you said earlier, they started out with God in general. They leaned in Him and understand what they need to be for their children. I never understood this, and we may be getting off the topic a little bit, but I never understood a father.
No, it's no topic left behind, but go ahead.
I never understood a father for the most part that didn't have his dad. His dad wasn't in his life, and he grew up and said, "Well, my father wasn't in my life." Like, what the f are you talking about, boss? That's
What?
more reason. In other words, they weren't raised with their father. Now they
Right.
have children. They choose not to be in their children's life because they look at themselves that they turn out okay, and my father wasn't there. That's the dumbest ass thing I ever heard in my life.
You ain't never said more than the
It,
truth.
it really is. And
Absolutely.
they sit there. No, you're making a choice, a willing choice not to be in your children's life, and you ain't use it as a crutch, an excuse. It's the dumbest thing that can come out of anyone's mouth. In
Mm.
reality, we don't understand our purpose as fathers and mothers. We don't. We don't
Mm-hmm.
understand the reason why we're here. And that could be another show. I don't want to go too deep in that. But I want to, kind of say this in a sense and give this as a frame of thought. Think
Mm-hmm.
about a young man for the most part, whether his father was there or not, and he was in there. But think about the young male for the most part. This may lead to a young man or older man deciding he needs to be checked in on or thinking about being checked in on quite a bit.
Yes. Yes.
Because imagine the mother and the father is there, but this child was not
Ooh,
raised feeling and knowing that he was loved.
absolutely. And you know what? It causes that child, especially a male, to be hyper independent. And that hyper independence puts them in the place of definitely needing so much, but rejecting that need because their independence was their barrier or their defense mechanism for not receiving what they needed in the home. And so they could, instead of, oh, I'm gonna be that person that wants that need that emotional support. I'm going to reject it, and I'm going to now internalize it and just go ahead and be like, nope, I don't need nobody, I can do it myself, and this, that, and another. And no man is an island, no man stands alone, we do need people. But they're afraid because they don't know how to acknowledge or how to operate in that emotion or those emotions of need, because you don't know the baseline. So it's like I won't deal with it at all because I don't have a baseline. Like you said, I had both people there, but I still didn't have a sense of worth or a sense of value. So I still don't understand how to regulate my emotions.
Hmm. Yeah. That's key right there, regulating your emotions. Yeah, it's key for men and women, but for a male most definitely, because without the regulation, then I see you need more of them out to validation. You need more to check
Hmm.
in. You need all that because your emotions are regulated. I go back to the man again that basically went to the divorce and felt a certain type of way because nobody was checking in on him.
Hmm. Hmm.
Bro, realistically, if you're good, what are they checking in going to do for you? When you
Right.
think about it, them checking in on you and why you're competing with the attention that she's getting.
And
That's
you
the
know what,
question.
Mark, what you I like that, but you know what, we talking about, the developmentally not getting it, maybe at nurturing from home. But let's talk about the male that came in with some esteem, with some emotional understanding, and now you're rejected a lot in relationships. Now your emotions or your validation has been questioned so much because of the interaction of other people who weren't in a place to be able to give you or to build on your emotions or whatever. And now you're in a place where, like you said, you're feeling like, oh, well, who loves me? Who wants me? I've been rejected. These relationships have made me feel like I'm nothing. Now I'm looking or seeking to find somebody who cares about me. And like you said, you get that overly emotional male who wants to be checked on.
Now, here's a point too about that. Here's a point.
Hmm.
You have to pay attention to, as a man, you have to pay attention who's doing the rejecting.
Ooh, okay, okay, absolutely. Talk about that. Absolutely.
Yeah, because if she's rejecting you, analyze her
Yes.
realistically. Because is she really worth feeling anything if she rejects you?
Mm, 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 mm.
Is she really worth having a dent in your male armor, your masculinity, feeling something? Is she worthy of that?
Mm,
Because a lot of time, men, we get caught up in what she looks like when she rejects us, and we feel like, okay, maybe something about me. But realistically, let's go beyond the surface.
mm-hmm,
Let's go way beyond the surface. Who is she as a woman to reject you? Now,
mm-hmm,
if she's what she needs to be, and she finds a reason to reject you, or you're rejected by her, I look at it as such. You know what? You basically try to understand why, because it could be something about you that needs to be improved. That
absolutely. Because
doesn't.
why did you take this person from the beginning? So, what made you bring this person to you anyway?
There
So,
it
maybe
is.
they saw the lack. Maybe they saw
Yes.
the opening. You know what I mean? So, like you
Hmm.
said, so I look at it like this. It may be a little special, but did the person reject me, or did I reject myself by actually aligning myself with someone who wasn't for me anyway?
There it is. And a lot of times as men, we do that. We put ourselves with women that aren't really worth our time.
Mm-hmm.
They're worth our view, they're worth our visual, but they're not really worth our time. And then when they basically act a certain way, you kick back and take it personal. When in
Mm-hmm.
reality, there may not be any need to. So you
Hmm.
must pay attention to the person that's doing the rejection. And again, understand why the rejection is taking place. And if it's valid, you address it within yourself. But if it's
Mm-hmm.
not, you kick it into the garbage can. Because sometimes you have to understand as a man, realistically, your confidence, your self worth, you have to know who you are. You
Yeah.
have to know who you are, where you stand. And again, and knowing that, know your flaws, know your weaknesses, and you
Mm-hmm.
work to strengthen your weaknesses. Now, realistically, when those things are where they need to be, that rejection is really not even going to hurt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because if
It's going to
she,
be a lesson. It's going to be a lesson, not a
absolutely,
rejection.
there it
Mm-hmm.
is. Because if she couldn't really understand who you are and basically respond to who you are, someone else will. It's a
Mm-hmm.
way where God has basically shown you she wasn't worth you anyway, boss. So
Mm-hmm.
why are you sitting around going to the bar drinking over her? Why are you sitting around
Mm-hmm.
smoking weed over her? Why are you spending time complaining about what went on with her when realistically, she wasn't worth it?
Mm-hmm.
She
Mm-hmm.
wasn't. And that's the thing about men. Sometimes I said, men are afraid to be in men. Sometimes we
Mm-hmm.
are. We're afraid to be. God has given us things as men that we need to lean into. And sometimes as men, we're afraid. We let society talk about toxic masculinity, all that BS stuff. No. If you research men, there's nothing about a man that's toxic. If
Absolutely.
you're doing things the right
Mm-hmm.
way as it's supposed to be
Right. That
done,
part. Yeah,
there's
that part.
nothing
Uh-huh.
toxic about you. So don't let some people that are basically afraid to be men, that want to basically shiver off the part of you being a man, determine what type of man you are and what you should be feeling. So
Absolutely.
that goes back to the point about rejection. Are they worth it? And don't let people speak onto you that have no right to say nothing to you as a man.
Mm-hmm.
That's a
Mm-hmm.
man being a man, realistically. And we were put here for a reason, to stand tall, with our heads stand up high as men. And if you can't
And
do
that's
that,
even in your era, because I just want to kind of reiterate. I mean, I want to put that in there. I want to put that in there. That's even in your era. So even as a male, because we all fall short. So your eras or your falls does not take away your masculinity. It does not take away your God-given ability and power of leadership or things of that nature. And I think a lot of times, that that hits the emotion of a man, that they feel that internally they believe they're a failure when they have messed up, or they haven't missed they've missed the mark, and that does not determine that. And you call me remarkable Renee, and again, that's, I thank you, and that's also not gender based, but that just says get up from the fall and do different, do better, and not let it take an attack on your gender, your masculinity, or if you are a man or not. No, if you were born male, you are a male, right? And a man is something that you continue to develop in, and developing is a process. And in that process, you're going to have bumps and bruises and ups and downs. Just get back up and go back to the process.
so you just spoke like a father, Renee. Realistically, I find humor in it, but reality, you just spoke like a dad. How a dad would speak to his son when his son
Wow.
basically falls down. If son faces a certain situation, but his son get his heart broken for the first time. When his son basically says to dad, "I'm feeling this," blah blah blah. A lot what you just said is what fathers instill in their sons. They do, and a son's job is basically to take that, build on it, instill it, plug it in, and work. And if
Mm,
he hasn't had that from his dad, and he couldn't get it from his mother for whatever the case may be, realistically, he's left and he's in a boat kind of sailing for the most part by himself. And the water's just knocking that boat all over the place. And
wow.
yeah, it's just kind of basically knocking it around. And I think sometimes too, and I could be wrong when I say this, I look at sometimes the overselling that a lot of men do. We buy things to look flashy, to look at
Yeah,
me, to all this. And sometimes we're basically covering up a character trait that we have.
absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
we're overselling. So you look at this, so you don't really look at me and see what's really inside of me. So
Absolutely.
like me and love me for what I present, and that's why I always go back to a character of a man. I
Yeah.
really go back to a character of a man because a lot of times that's all you really have. You strip
And it's
away.
funny that you said that, because from the female, right? I remember going to a concert, and this guy behind me dropped like a 20 or 50 or whatever. I'm not gonna lie, I can't remember the bill. But he placed it like beside my chair. And so he tapped me and pointed to it. So I tapped the lady beside me and was like, "Hey, I think you dropped some money," because I knew I hadn't dropped it. And her response was, "Oh no, baby, honey, he just made it rain on you. Like he trying to get at you." And I'm like, I'm in Georgia, and I'm like, okay, I don't work for Magic City. I don't know what y'all do
Ooh.
here, but that's not how you pick me up. Because I'm not impressed. Because what you just showed me was that automatically that's all you have to offer. Right. So, like you were saying, so you've just told me all that I needed to know about you. And that means I don't want to deal with you because you're surface and material, that you have no depth, that you don't have any self worth at what you as you see yourself, because you've just prodded everything and putting a dollar bill or dollar bills on somebody and looking for them to take the bait. Wrong, female.
Yeah, and as I was saying, basically, if you strip all that away, you strip all the superficial stuff away from a man, he should be able to stand there naked with his character, and you see exactly who he is.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that is the nature of a man. That's who you
Yes.
should be able to really see, and then decide, do you want to be part of this person or not? But a lot of times it get caught up in the overselling, the over purchasing. This person could do this, to have this, blank, 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 and the character, the character is not
But
looked
like you
upon.
said, it takes us back to what we really started about this, about that needing that validation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this, maybe this material thing, in place of the fact that I don't see the validation and I need it. So if I give you something, then maybe you'll see what I need and give it back to me. You'll see that I need to be validated. I need to be checked on. But what I'll do is I'll offer you something in hopes that you give that back to me.
Yeah, let's think about this for a second too,
Hmm.
because when we talk about men need to be checked on, but when people really care for you,
Hmm.
when people really feel you,
Come on, Mark. Come on. Hmm.
wouldn't they check on you naturally?
Listen, that is the simplest common sense, but we make things complicated, right? Like that is just so simple. If you care, if you really care, just check on me, because not let it be anything I have to do. Send that, hey, just checking on, saying how you doing, don't want nothing. That just that's nothing wrong with that kind of checking on. But when you're seeking it and needing it, Mark, but like you just said something, because the person.
Yeah. Hello, Renee.
Yeah, and I just said a whole lot of stuff. I was
Yeah,
saying,
that's okay.
uh,
Here's what we're gonna do, because I'm gonna edit this out anyway. I want you to
okay,
go back where you started at beginning with, about checking on, about caring about you. Go, for some reason
yes,
you dropped out, but this is
I know.
cool
I
because
don't know what happened.
that's all
Yeah.
right. That's all right. That's
Um.
that's what I love about doing what I do, because I can take all that and put it back together. Don't you worry about that.
Good.
We could
Okay.
we could rebuild. That's what we do here. Remarkable. So start back from there. Take a little. Let's take a little pause and start back from there, and I'll
Okay.
clean all that up. So when I
Okay.
stop
Thank
talking,
you.
give like 2 or 3 seconds and just roll right into it.
Okay. So yeah, I'm like, so the thing about it is we make things so complicated. You said something that was so very simple. If a person really cares for me, they'll check on me anyway. They'll send me a text, they'll send me a card, they'll give me a call and just say, "Hey, just checking on you." But because sometimes when we're so depleted and we need it so bad, we miss the very obvious. And that point that you just made, we miss the obvious, that if someone cares, they will check. And that's a good thing. That's a balance. That's a good checking on. But when we're so depleted and we're so needy and we reach out and we want it, we miss the most simplest things. And that right there to me was very profound, because sometimes we complicate the simple.
Oh yeah, we're good at that. We really do. I mean, we take man the simple, we make it hard, we make it huge, make it complicated, And we have a lot of people that do. And we
Hmm.
jump into a pool. Society basically says, yeah, because a lot of times making the simple complicated is exciting for some people.
It is. It
Yeah,
is.
they feed off that excitement. So they got to have this built in excitement, this built in energy when it's really a lot of it's not that complicated. It's
Mm-mm, at
not.
all. At all.
Yeah, it's not
At all.
complicated. Yeah, if you keep it simple for the most part, you move along at a real good pace. And again, going back to how we kind of really started men looking to be checked on. And I don't want to say where it's a bad thing. I don't. But if you're overly looking for someone to basically feed you, make you feel a certain way, I think it's time you really start to look within yourself and understand why. Really try to get to the core and the basis point why that's necessary. And here again, that's not no one's checking on your mental health because we all have our moments of feeling a certain way. I'm with that. But if you're
Hmm.
constantly feel the need of validation, where you're seeking approval, acceptance, you need recognition, try to understand why is that there. I mean,
Yeah.
we live many days in this life. We could spend some time to really try to get the root of that, because the root of that will basically have you to understand why, and gives you something to work on. And whether
Absolutely.
we like it or not, at different points in our life, we all have things to work on. You don't get to a certain age and feel like I have nothing else to do. No, we
Absolutely.
always have something that we can improve and make better. And a lot of time as men, our egos get in the way. Ain't nothing wrong
Ooh,
with me. I'm
yeah.
this, I'm that. No, bro, you're not. You think
Yeah.
you are. You think you are, but you're presenting something totally different. What comes out of your mouth and what you're doing are two totally different things. So
Right.
be real with yourself. Really
Ooh.
be real, be honest, examine. Don't be afraid. It may hurt, but you're a man.
Don't be
Deal with it.
afraid of the way you
Yes,
feel.
pull
Yeah,
back,
absolutely.
try to understand, because yeah, we all deal with certain things that are different, and that doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It
I
does
say
not.
this, I say this, Mark. I say we have to be real with who we are, with what we're experiencing, for what we're thinking, things of that nature, in order for us to deal with those very things. And that's how we heal from all of those things. So you got to be real, deal to heal.
Explain to me, because that word gets tossed around a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think we get tossed around a lot, but since we talk about men being checked on men, when you say the word heal, what does that mean to a man?
Whew, I like that. I would say healing to a man, and specifically, is first and foremost
Okay. When you come back, we'll start
that.
that again. Hang on a second, Renee.
Okay.
You faded
Hold
out
on. Hold
again.
on.
So we're gonna do is we're gonna do the same thing. You can
Okay.
just start backwards. I like that. And give me a few seconds. When I stop talking, I like that, and roll back where you were.
Okay. Ooh, real. Yeah, I like that. Let's look at what it is to for a man to heal. And I would say specifically for a man to heal is to first and foremost acknowledge his role as a leader, as powerful, as in the, and I would say this honestly, the only way to recognize that is to get that affirmation or confirmation for one who is greater than him, right? And so it is my belief that the umbrella of hierarchy or whatever is God, man, woman. We can talk about that another day for another show, but I
Hang
really
on
believe
one
that.
second. Let's do a timeout right there. I'm gonna have to draw my challenger flag for this one. Hang on, repeat that again, because we forget that. We really do forget that. Let's hear that again. Remarkable. What's
Okay.
the hierarchy? I might have to write this down to you while you say it. I'm sorry, please. Sorry to interrupt, but some things have to be repeated.
Yeah, so that is the hierarchy. It's God, man, and then woman. And so for a man to understand his healing, he has to put himself back in that hierarchy, put himself back in the place to then present the mirror of God, and he look in that, right? And he allows that mirror to give him the reflection, but also give him the affirmation as to who he is. Because one who's without direction, without a purpose, without understanding of self, is not going to be a person who's going to be in a position position to lead, to understand, to impact, or anything like that. So healing first has to come there. You have to let he who is greater actually minister to and to uproot what seeds have been sown into your soul and in that soil that's in there that makes you believe otherwise from what he actually says. So that would be the beginning of healing. And then I'm going to say this for a male, and I know that it's, again, it's not really specific or gender based, but that male to take quality time with himself to learn of himself before he looks to teach anyone else. That's what healing looks like for me for a man, because it really speaks more to what we talked about from the beginning, to the logic of who he is, and less of the emotional aspect. Not that he's void it, because again, I say it's not separate, but being able to maximize on the prevalent as to who he is in that hierarchy. And it's logical.
Hmm. I like that. Actually, I'm go deep. I love it. I love that. And I knew saying that you would give it what was necessary. And yeah, that's it. That's it. And a lot of times, like I said a little while ago, we have to kind of basically check our oil for the most part. Go into our hood, find out what's really going on, and don't be afraid to reinvent. Don't be afraid to do something. Be a little different. To make adjustments as we go along. It's necessary. We may not have started at the same spot. We may not have had everything we need that we started, but there's no excuse for you not to be better than what you can be currently. There is no
Absolutely.
excuse. You choose an excuse and you're going to make one, but there is none. Remarkable, Renee.
Yes.
I think we got. I think we got something. There's no topic left now. What are
I
your
think
thoughts?
I think so. I am in full belief that, by the time we get this audience to continue to connect with No Topic Left Behind, we're gonna have a lot of topics, and we're gonna have a lot of people who are navigating this journey in a better self and in a better way, Mark.
What is really better than that? When you think about it, for the most part, what's
Absolutely.
really better than that? And to me, that's what conversation should do. No matter who you're having it with, no matter what you're listening to, a conversation should basically move you to think, move you to do
Yes.
something different, open you up to
Yes.
something, and basically be real. And to me, when a
Yes.
conversation works, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Well, we're going to get ready to wrap this one up. We have, more that we're going to be doing. But I want to basically get your word on and close out on your word because, again, this is your baby.
Yes. So as we end this No Topic Left Behind and check in on that mail, understand that it's okay to navigate through your emotions. It's just not okay to pitch a tent and live there. It's okay to want to be checked on, but you want to check if that is something that you need and desire, and it's an overt thing that you have to be checked on. It's okay that, you understand that you are able to operate out of your emotions as a male, because to suppress them turns you into something else. And most times it turns you into a character or give you characteristics that are unbecoming. So, no, I just want to say at the end of this that it's okay to be checked on. It may not be okay if that's a need to be checked on.
Hmm. I like that. I love that as well. I want to thank you, Remarkable Renee, for giving me the opportunity to do what I do. And that's basically run my mouth, I guess, for the most part.
Likewise, my brother, likewise.
We're getting together real soon and put together another episode of No Topic Left Behind. I appreciate this. May God continue to bless you. Of course, we love you. Take care of yourself.
Absolutely.